morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Well, picture this situation. A bull with a bad case of foot rot. You got him roped and the trailer's right there. Now all you have to do is get him loaded. A well-known rancher, singer, and songwriter from Montana has the rest of that story today.
And she said, "You're going to kill me. You're going to kill me." And I said, "No, you can outrun that crippled bull, especially if you're scared."
And find out what Baxter Black is so vividly describing. Might have something to do with a horse trader.
His ears had froze off near his head, his legs bowed like a lizard, his back was humped. When he stepped out, his gait severely scissored.
On the Rangeland News, lots of interesting information, including how the experts think the groundhogs got it wrong.
To the first part of March calls for below normal temperatures.
Yeah, maybe not great news for calving. And one of those special pieces today in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
He can still see the trail herd stretching out north, long horns gleaming bright in the sun. Hear the bellows of cattle, the squalls of the cowboys, a horseback till day's work is done.
A classic song of the West that you probably haven't heard for years. And on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear horse training file, this horse started refusing to lope or go downhill. The owner thought maybe it was the bit, but it turns out it was something very different. We'll start out with Ken Overcast, rancher from Montana. After his song, we're going to swap some colorful ranching experiences.
He's just a working cowboy, riding for a brand, engraved on the silver buckle of another man. He's dreaming about tomorrow, but living in the past. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand. Well, the big boss married money. Her daddy had a mine, bought her 80,000 acres just to help the girl unwind. And the foreman is a sheep man, he can't even coil a twine. It's a dang hard go, why I don't know, but he'll stay till shipping time. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand, engraved on the silver buckle of another man. He's dreaming about tomorrow, but living in the past. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand. Well, he's living in the bunkhouse and saving every dime. He'll have 10 cows by payday, already saved for 9. Well, dreaming dreams is easy. It's the doing takes the time. It's worth it all when come some fall. Yup, them steers are mine. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand, engraved on the silver buckle of another man. He's dreaming about tomorrow when living in the past. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand. Well, he's gonna marry Jenny. He just asked her yesterday. They're moving down on the Muscle Shell the middle part of May. They ain't got much to go on, but they'll get along some way. If they hold on tight and do things right, they're gonna make her pay. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand, engraved on the silver buckle of another man. He's dreaming about tomorrow when living in the past. Just a working cowboy, riding for a brand.
Billy and I still have fond memories of visiting the Overcast Ranch in Montana with Ken and his dear wife Dawn, and after enjoying some wonderful Overcast Ranch steaks, we swapped a few stories.
One time we were preg testing, it reminded me of a story. You know, my wife Dawn is just a little bit of a woman, But nobody could push the cows up the chute to suit her because they might be mean to her babies, you know. So I was running the chute, the vet was doing his testing, and she was pushing them in. And one time she had trouble with this big old Hereford cow, just a big old gentle sissy, you know. She just wouldn't go, and Dawn had this tail all twisted up over the top of her back and pulling it down, and she had her shoulder right into this old cow, and the manure was running down the side of her face, and you can get the picture here.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and she's about a 95-pound woman, you know, and the language got a little bit blue back there at the back of the chute. The vet looked back there at her and he said, you know, pound for pound, he said, I think that's the meanest woman on the face of this earth.
Well, did the Hereford cow go in?
Well, eventually she did, yeah.
Sometimes, you know, the more times those cows run through that chute, and they're usually subject to something that gives them more than a little discomfort every time they go in there, about the fourth or fifth time, they really, if they just stand there and they don't want to go in, sometimes it really does test a person's resolve to get them in.
Yeah, it sure does.
Well, Billy was pushing calves into a calf table, and I used to not even admit that I ever worked at brandings where they used a calf table, but we did work for a fellow one time that wanted to do it that way, so my good rope horse got to stand tied to the fence and watch us pushing calves into the chute, which I thought didn't make a whole lot of sense, but I think I was branding or running the knife, and Billy was pushing the calves up into the calf table, and then the two guys that were locking the front end, locking the head gate and tipping it on its side were from the city, and really enthusiastic and efficiency conscious and thinking about the time and wasted motion and everything, and man, the calf wasn't in there for a second or two, and wham, the chute was over on its side, and one of them was a little slow to go in, so Billy got her head in behind the calf and shoved into the chute, and they slammed the gate, twisted it on its side, and just bulldogged her over like that. And the language was probably some of the words Don used that time.
Could have been, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
When we come back, Ken explains how his daughter helped him load a lame bull, and she really wasn't impressed. When the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Ed Wall is another one of those fine Western music singers and pickers who will be at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival next month, and you'll hear him after we get back to Ken Overcast and one surefire way to get a lame bull into your stock trailer.
Well, we had a foot rot bull here a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and we had plenty of bulls out with the cows, and he'd been that way most of the summer, you know, and so I didn't really worry about him. We were busy haying or something, and so we went out to pick up this bull, and my daughter Carlene went out with me, and she was kind of my cowboy. That was the only help that I had, and she's a good hand too. And we got this bull up down on the creek bottom, and we had to get him clear up on top to get him into the corral. And he was pretty crippled up, but he could travel all right if he wanted to. But he was kind of about like that bull you were describing. He if he didn't want to go, he wouldn't, you know. And so we got him up out of the creek bottom, and there's a lot of brush and stuff down in there, and we got him up on top all right. And the darn thing decided he's going to go back down because he figured out we're going to put him in the corral, and he just didn't have anything to do with that. So he headed for the creek again. And being an enterprising, intelligent guy like I am, I decided, well, we better rope this bull up here on top of this hill.
Good plan.
Yeah, so we can, don't let him get in the brush, you know. So I dabbed it on him, and my old horse is a good rope horse, but we just couldn't hold a ton of bull that was roped kind of deep, you know. And I had him down, I had him pretty deep, and I just couldn't hold him, and down the coulee we went, you know. And we're a skidding, and the rocks is a flying, and he's going down through all this buffalo berry bushes with, I don't know if you got them in Alberta or in British Columbia or not. You don't got buffalo berries? Well, they got big old thorns on them about 1 inch long, you know, so down through there we're going, and it's just a scratching everything up all the way. And he gets down in there, and I finally get him slowed down to where he stops right in the middle of a great big patch of this stuff, you know. And but I had him, boy, I had him. I didn't know how I was going to turn him loose, but I had him. About a ton of black bull, you know. So I said to my daughter, I said, now go get the trailer, and we're gonna get this bull up on top, and then we'll load him in that trailer up there on top of the hill. So she did. She went and got the trailer, and it was a mile or so away, And I figured if I let that bull stand there a little bit, well, maybe he'd kind of get over his bad habits and he'd walk right back up the hill. Well, there ain't no such luck as that, you know. And so I was trying everything I could to get him to get up, and he was getting kind of on the fight, but I couldn't turn loose of him because then he would get away from us. So I said, now, Carlene, you're going to have to be the bait. You're going to have to get in front of that bull with a stick and whack him right between the eyes and then run for the trailer.
He'll follow.
He'll follow you. It'll work every time. And she said, you're going to kill me. You're going to kill me. And I said, no, you can outrun that crippled bull, especially if you're scared. Now, don't.
You can run faster scared than he can mad.
That's right. And he's crippled. And he's got to drag me, too, so it'll be all right.
Yeah.
So finally she did, but very reluctantly. She did get out there, and that old bull did. He took right after her, and up the coulee we went, you know, and she's a squealing the whole time like a hog with her head stuck in the fence. But we did get up on top, and we finally got that bull loaded. It took a half a day.
Wow.
If I had it to do over again, I might have just left him down there till winter time.
Well, we're going to swap a couple more stories very shortly, but remember now, March 14th to the 17th is the 23rd annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, and here's the guy that'll be playing for the Thursday night barbecue and dance, and he'll be doing several sets through the weekend too. Ed Wall.
I'm just an old cowpoke, and I was born to ride. I was born to skid and scaddle all across the countryside. I'm just an old cowpoke, just common folk, but I like to have fun on my own Saturday night. And there ain't nothing bad you could say about this old cowboy, because an old cowboy like me still has something up his sleeve. I'm just an old cowpoke, I always roll my own smoke. I like to cinch my own saddle, I diddle and daddle, and I can still handle a rope. I used to rodeo, I could steal a whole damn show. Yeah, I could rope 'em and ride 'em, dog 'em and tie 'em. Now my old lady won't let me go. But there ain't nothing bad you could say about this old cowboy, because an old cowboy like me still has something that you need. I'm just an old cowpoke, I was born to ride. I was born to sit a saddle all across the countryside. I used to rodeo, I could steal a whole damn show. Yeah, I could rope 'em and ride 'em, dog 'em and tie 'em. Now my old lady won't let me go. And there ain't nothing bad you could say about this old cowboy, because an old cowboy like me still has something up his sleeve. I'm just an old cowpoke, an old cowpoke.
Now you're going to enjoy Ed Wall at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival. Love that stuff and that beautiful acoustic guitar, too. Now back to Ken Overcast. And roping a bull is something many of us have done, maybe when we shouldn't have.
Isn't that way? Sometimes that seems like a good idea at the time, but once you get that rope on there, you're sort of committed.
Well, that's it. You know, the thing about me is if I make up my mind I'm going to do something, by George, we're going to do it. And if the cow or the bull ain't going to go, well, I'll show you. But most of the time, I'm the one who winds up getting showed.
I don't don't know, is that a guy thing or what? Because we wind up like that sometimes, and it probably doesn't make any sense at all by the time a couple hours gone by. But I'm not going to quit. I started into this project.
There ain't a cowboy alive don't look for an excuse to jerk his rope down.
Yeah. Well, one time I was showing Billy how to heel, and we used to ride along quite often if we had a nice, quiet, slow bunch of cows to trail a ways. Well, you could just throw these heel loops, and pick up two, and they'd take a step, and your loop opens up and it drops off. And I said, that's a good way to practice. And then I said, we used to practice heeling each other's horses sometimes too, which was kind of good practice. Yeah. And so I said, you ride ahead of me, and I'll just heel your horse, and that'll be all right, which I did. Yeah. And I said, now you just try it. I'll ride ahead of you nice and slow, and try and get both heels. And if you just get one, I said, just let it drop quick before it tightens. So she threw one loop, and she just got one heel on old Drifter, a nice old Appy gelding I was riding. He was pretty quiet. And she threw again, and she got one heel and let it drop off. The next time she threw a little bigger loop, and it come right around. She picked them both up, and she pulled it up so high that it come right up around his, just up about around his flank. And she says, look, I got them both. And she pulled the slack, tightened it up, and old Drifter felt that come around his flank. And it was just like a bucking strap. He just started to pitch. She was so excited, he took 5 or 6 jumps, and she's still saying, I got them both. I know, let it go.
But she got her slack, by George.
That's right. She
Boy, talking about bucking, when I was a kid, of course, every young buckaroo wants to ride bucking horses and bulls and all that stuff, And so I built this chute, me and my brothers, at the ranch there, but Dad wouldn't let us ride the cows or anything when he was there. So in order to stay out of trouble, we used to ride the neighbors' cows, which worked out pretty good until they came home one time. And we had a neighbor right up the road, and the lady drove down there, and we had about 30 head of her cows in there, and we was just having a...
You just put them right in the bucking chute and put a bull rope on them?
Yeah. We was just practicing on her cows. And but she shows up there one day, and she was kind of a tough old girl too. The language she used got a little colorful once in a while. She was just a regular old country gal, and she didn't back up from anything. And I was scared to death. I was just about 15 years old, absolutely scared to death. But she thought the world of me for some reason. She thought I was just wonderful. Little did she know I was riding her cows, And she come home, and her cows was missing. They were all gone. She had about 30 head of them in this field, and she couldn't find them anywhere. She drove down there looking for them, and here they were. There was one of them in the chute, and about 4 or 5 more of them stacked up in the alleyway behind them, when we were just riding them out of there as fast as we could get them out of there. And she said, Kenny, you seen my cows? And I just looked at her and lied right bald-faced. I said, nope, I ain't seen them, but don't worry about them, because they must be down in the field here. I'll get them back.
There's more stuff like that coming up. And Baxter Black is next with a look at the profession of, if you can call it that, horse trading. Matt Robertson has a song, and then it's the Rangeland News when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after that with a little peek at Flint's trade. Are you worrying about your farm or ranch in the years to come? Illness, business, family fights over the land, who gets what? Will Uncle Sam be your largest heir? Talk to Lincoln Agribusiness Services. Mike McCormick and Scott Tyke help families deal with difficult life decisions that determine your future. Just think of them as a smart neighbor. Give them a call and find out for yourself. I did. Lincoln Agribusiness Services, 415-589-8479. I have never heard horse trading described as a business, no more than one would think of juggling live chickens or ice skating on linoleum as a full-time job. That is, until Flint got involved. Me and Flint were trading horses when the thought occurred to us, we could start ourselves a business. After all, who can you trust if you can't trust an old trader who's never held a job? That's high praise in certain circles where the idle poor hobnob. We should print some stationery, buy a rabbit's foot for luck, put an ad up in the sale barn, and paint our motto on the truck. All things that smell like horse manure, all creatures part equinal. All spotted horses cost you more, of course, all sales are final. We'll need to start a check account to lend ourselves repute. I stopped Flint's grand oration to point out we're destitute. Old son, He sagely said to me, "We must appear successful. If we don't walk the rooster walk, we'll never fill our nest full." In 8 days' time, our empire built, I calmly manned the phone, sharpened pencils, straightened horseshoes, and played checkers all alone. No one called except Rotarians, inviting us to join. When Flint drove up dragging this old trailer he'd purloined, I rushed outside and helped my pard unwire the tailgate. He was grinning like a 12-year-old about to flatulate. "Our first big trade," he bragged to me, "the start of our first million." The horse backed out, and my first thought was, he looked somehow reptilian. His ears had froze off near his head, his legs bowed like a lizard, his back was humped. When he stepped out, his gait severely scissored. He couldn't walk a straight line true, and his tail drug the ground, so a tracker'd think a herd of kangaroos had passed through town. His head looked like a chest of drawers, his lower lip a shovel, and from the spur tracks on his side I knew he might be trouble. "Got him for a song," he said. "Bargain, sure as I live." "So, Flint," I said, "I'm curious, just what did you have to give?" He turned to me. "A check," he said. His eyes went kind of funny. "Well," said I, "I'll give you this. You sure got him worth the money." This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
How about a weekend pass to the 23rd Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 14th to 17th, 2019. Just about the finest lineup of talent we've ever had. Michael Fleming.
On the back roads of Utah near the San Rafael, an old rough stock rider strides to the corral.
Gene Prescott.
Then he'd swing down from the saddle, and he'd take me in his arms.
Tim Huss.
The band's tuning up, and they're stocking the bar. Ranchers are coming from near and far.
Special guest, Lewis the Big Rig McIver, and so many more. The BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, a spectacular art and gear show, workshops on everything from songwriting to saddle making. The best place to get all the information is bcchs.com. And to order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. Just ahead of the rangeland news, here's another guy who is the real deal, working cowboy, great horseman, wins a lot of ranch rodeo bronc riding contests. Matt Robertson will be at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival, and maybe he'll do this one.
On an old happy horse wearing a bright yellow slicker, riding in the road ditch late in the night. The slicker's a-flying, his old horse is trying. Midnight rider riding in my headlights. He worked every job and boys, he worked hard. He loved the rodeo, going to the bar. On Highway 13 you see him giving his all, trying to make Winfield the Bucklegs' last call. On an old happy horse wearing a bright yellow slicker, riding in the road ditch late in the night. His slicker's a-flying, his old horse is trying. Midnight rider riding in my headlights. You travel on 13 when good folks are in bed. Your eyes are getting heavy, you're shaking your head. Keep your eyes open, you just might see midnight ride of old Dwayne Rigby. On an old happy horse wearing a bright yellow slicker, riding in the road ditch late in the night. His slicker's a-flying and his old horse is trying. Midnight rider riding in my headlights. On an old happy horse wearing a bright yellow slicker, riding in the road ditch late in the night. His slicker's a-flying, his old horse is trying. Midnight rider riding in my headlights.
of the rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, it says Gary Crawford is back after the government shutdown, and his first report looks back a couple of weeks to Groundhog Day. And it seems the weather experts don't agree with the legendary rodent's prediction of an early spring.
Agriculture Department Chief Meteorologist Mark Russberg, the weather forecasting dynasty of Punxsutawney Phil continued.
There is no shadow of me. A beautiful spring it shall be.
Russberg says no shadow is supposed to mean an early spring, however.
I wouldn't put any money on it.
Here's why.
The National Weather Service outlook, which takes them into the first part of March, calls for below normal temperatures. So they're disagreeing with Phil.
But according to what Punxsutawney Phil has told his handlers,
for 133 years, I've never been wrong.
But many meteorologists say Phil's predictions have been wrong over 60% of the time. But Mark Russberg says, hey, it's a fun tradition, and who knows?
Maybe it is going to be a beautiful spring.
And maybe an early one. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
What do you get when you cross a Holstein heifer with a Wagyu bull? Well, the answer is Saskatchewan snow beef. Ian and Nicole Crosby are marketing that beef, produced on their farm just north of the Trans-Canada Highway west of Caronport, Saskatchewan. Crossbreeding Holsteins with beef semen isn't new, but when Ian had a $75 6-ounce Angus Wagyu steak a few years ago in a Toronto steakhouse, that got him to thinking. So he bought full-blood semen from Wagyu Sikai in Ontario and began the AI program. The calves are born at between 60 and 70 pounds, and they're raised with Holstein dairy calves until they're about 18 months old, and then they go to the salad bar for cattle, the finishing pens. Well, the cattle industry will remain profitable, but there is a cyclical price risk moving into the early 2020s. At least that's according to CattleFax market analyst Kevin Good, and he also thinks there could be an erosion in calf prices, but cow-calf operators can expect to remain profitable with no major liquidation phase expected for the next couple of years. Well, providing nothing unforeseen happens. The new president of the U.S. National Cattlewomen's Association is Wanda Pino of Montana. She's past president of the Montana Cattlewomen and replaces outgoing ANCW President Gwen Guise of Gillette, Wyoming. And a rancher has legally harvested a wolf on his property 40 miles east of Billings, Montana last week. The rancher who held a Montana wolf hunting license says he harvested the wolf after it was chasing some of his cattle away from a coulee where he was feeding them. The wolf was a young adult male and weighed about 100 pounds. And the wolf specialist Abby Nelson says there's no way to know where the wolf came from. During this time of year, lone wolves, and young males in particular, can travel hundreds of miles in search of a mate. About 10% of the known wolf population goes into dispersal every year. A natural life history trait, she says, for sexually mature wolves. And the next month is breeding season for wolves, and that's when they tend to move around the most. The average dispersal distance is 50 to 60 miles, but recent examples from Montana show that wolves have been tracked more than 300 miles from Jackson, Wyoming, all the way to Canmore, Alberta. Well, March the 8th, I will have Mike and Jim, the famous Western Spirit Band, along with me to entertain the folks at the annual Grand Prairie Farm Family Awards. That's the 8th of March. For tickets, and it is open to the public, and we hope to have a lot of fun there. For tickets, you can call this number, 780-532-9297. And then we head right back to Kamloops, of course, for the 23rd Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 14th to 17th. And then April the 25th, it's our cruise reunion celebration at the Westerner in Red Deer, Alberta, with a whole bunch of folks who've been in our cruises for the past years, along with their friends and family. For information and to RSVP, you can call 1-800-530-0131, and that is April 25th, the day before the main event. Horse Expo gets underway, and I'll be there for the Trainers Challenge again, April 6th to the 28th. Doing the commentary, 2 trainers named already, Cade Mills, last year's champion, and a fine horseman that I've had the privilege of watching several times, starting colts, Rod Olson from Cardston. Stay tuned. We'll have the 3rd trainer for you in the coming weeks. Next regular cattle sale at the BC Livestock Co-op Kamloops Yards is February the 26th and March the 7th. It's the next regular sale in Williams Lake, and March the 8th in Vanderhoof. And there are a lot of special sales coming up. You can see them all at bclivestock.bc.ca, and that's where you can watch the sales streaming live online. Meanwhile, out of the Innisfail Auction Market, next horse sale, Saturday, February 23rd. Regular cattle sales every Wednesday, pre-sort sales on Mondays, and you can get all the information at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. Okay, we're down to the final item, and I dug out a few things that a lot of us might wonder about. Could call them maybe points to ponder. For example, why do we press harder on the remote when we know the batteries are dead? Or why does somebody believe you when you say there are 4 billion stars, but they have to check when you tell them the paint is wet? And this one I've often wondered about since I saw him in the comic books and the movies. Why doesn't Tarzan have a beard? And let's see, what else? Oh, yeah. Men can read smaller print than women, it says, but women can hear better. And this one, why is lemon juice made with artificial flavor while dishwashing liquid is made with real lemons? I got lots more, but that's enough for today, and that is the Rangeland News. Coming up in the Urban Saddles and Western Wear horse training file, a horse that had been pretty good for a long time suddenly decided he didn't want to lope or go downhill when he was being ridden. And the cause is not what the owner thought. More stories from Ken Overcast, too, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Mike Blakely did a fine job as the MC for the tribute to Ian Tyson at the National Cowboy Gathering in Elko, Nevada. And boy, they had a huge lineup of Ian's protégés, you might say, including guys like Michael Martin Murphy, R.W. Hampton, Dave Stamey, Corb Lund, Ryan Fritz, and many more. They all did one Ian Tyson song, and then Ian joined them on stage for a wonderful version of 4 Strong Winds. Ryan actually did the guitar solo in the chorus. And anyway, here's one of Mike Beck's new songs. And I got to dedicate this one to all the great hat makers like Chaz Mitchell, Vern Elliott, Tim Cooper, and more. It's called The Hat Song.
I bought a brand new Stetson hat, a pretty good one, 100 X's. I found it on the sale rack, a little hat shop down in Texas. I got a good deal on it, 'cause it had one little flaw, just a rough spot on the crown there, but that was all. See, I figured in the long run, that one little spot wouldn't matter. 'Cause when it's all said and done, and all torn and tattered, that one imperfection will not stand alone. I'm gonna make this hat my own. 'Cause it's the way you grab the brim 1,000 times before you hang it, busting through mesquite limbs in the sky through which you fling it. Yeah, the rain may wash away the dust, but it leaves your sweat alone. I'm gonna make this hat my own. About then, this young dude walks in, danged if his wranglers weren't impressed. He said, I want a brand new brim, and I want mine distressed. The hat man frowned a little at the boy as he handed me my change, and he said, son, that way of thinking strikes me strange. He said, I ain't just some sales clerk. I build all these hats. Every day there's more work in that sweatshop in the back. And kicking dirt on my own handiwork ain't something I condone. You're gonna have to do that on your own, boy. 'Cause it's the way you grab the brim 1,000 times before you hang it. The busting through mesquite limbs and the hell through which you bring it. Yeah, the rain may wash away the dust, but it leaves your sweat alone. You gotta make that hat your own. And it's the scorching and the freezing on the ranges where you take it. The grit and grime of seasons, boy, there ain't no way to fake it. It's the dance hall and the campfire smoke, the embers from the brandy. And it's what you're down to when you're broke, held high, 'cause you're still standing. Oh, it's every trail behind you and the hard landing when you're thrown. That's how you make that hat your own. Take a look at that gray beard beside you there, boy. He's gonna wear his new hat home. You can bet he'll make that hat his own. Just dress it your own damn self, boy. You're gonna have to make that hat your own.
Guess what happens Thursday, March the 14th at 7 a.m.? A bunch of happy Westerners will board a Frontier Bus Lines luxury coach in Red Deer, Alberta, heading for the 23rd annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival. Luxury motor coach transportation, 4 nights accommodation at the Coast Hotel and Conference Center, daily breakfast, Thursday evening dinner and dance, weekend pass to the Cowboy Festival, and 3 nights of dinner theater entertainment. What a great way to take in this best display of cowboy culture, Western history, and live entertainment in all the West. Just call Frontier Bus Lines, 1-888-LET'S-BUS. That's 1-888-538-7287. Here's what a few folks have said about the Spirit of the West cruises.
We had a lot of fun. One of the best cruises I've been on with you.
I've already put my deposit down for the next year's cruise, so sure we'll see you again.
Yeah, it's a good crowd.
I've met excellent people and I couldn't ask for a better trip. The people were just like family. People look out for each other's and it's great. It's a great experience.
And they're just dedicated to helping you enjoy your holiday. I think that's what I really like about cruising.
That's what makes it so nice, is that there are so many folks that are from the background, the way we were brought up on farms and ranches.
Our 2019 cruise will be something we've wanted to do for a long time. August 29th, we'll fly to Dublin, Ireland. We'll visit an Irish thoroughbred breeding farm, be hosted by the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation. Then we'll sail to some historic and beautiful places, Cork, Belfast, and then Glasgow and Inverness, Scotland. We might even get pictures of Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. And we'll have stops in Paris and London. Get all the information at 1-800-530-0131. And check out our Spirit of the West cruise page at hugh-mclennan.com and our cruise Facebook page.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
At Irvine Tack and Western Wear, you won't find this.
Hey, yo!
But you will find this.
Welcome to Irvin's. How can I help you?
You won't find this.
What size boots you wear there, boy? You got tiny feet.
But you will find this.
Absolutely, we have your size. In fact, I've got the perfect pair for you right here.
The one and only Irvine Tack and Western Wear, something for everyone. Cowboys and cowgirls to city folks too. It's Western Wear with a welcome twist. Off exit 305 on Highway 2 by Crossfield. Open 7 days a week.
Canada's largest Western store.
And just in case you're looking for a new saddle, Irvin's has about 1,500 of them in stock right now. Anyway, this fella says, I have a problem with my good ranch horse that I've used for years. He's always done everything I asked, but this summer, he started doing things he's never done before. We were gathering yearlings on a hilly pasture, and after about an hour, some of them broke back from the gate and ran downhill. And when I pointed my horse after them, he trotted a few strides, and then he started tossing his head and jumping around like you might even try and buck. Well, a few weeks later, we were at another place, and after an hour, he'd been doing okay, but when I needed him to lope, he would trot fairly fast, and when I asked for the lope, he refused and started violently shaking his head again. Well, this guy's first thought was it must be the bit that he had started using that was kind of new to the horse, and the horse wasn't comfortable with it, so he went back to a Hackamore Boselle, but the problem persisted. So that was a clue. Now, the problem might not be what's always obvious, but once the guy figured out what it was, the horse made a complete recovery from this behavior, but it took about 3 months of not doing anything with him. Does this make sense? Well, it does, because this gelding had been free choice on a round bale 24/7 all winter long. And when it was time for the spring work, he was seriously overweight and had a big crest on his neck. Now, when the guy's farrier came to reset his shoes, he could tell right away that there was heat in the soles of both front feet. And it was a classic case of founder. Thankfully, in the early stages. Now, the horse's shoes were pulled, his feet were carefully trimmed to minimize pressure on the walls, and the gelding was kept in about a 2-acre dry pen and fed just a little flake of hay twice a day. And he was treated with some anti-inflammatories. The good news is, 3 months later, when he dropped a couple 100 pounds, he was reshod, and on the first ride, he was right back to his old willing self, and he'd pick up a lope effortlessly and showed no discomfort being ridden down steep hills. So it can happen fairly often that a perceived behavior problem can actually have a physical cause. Something that we find keeps our horse physically doing really well. They all get a daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration, and you can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. For Irvin Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Mark your calendar for Ulrich Herbert's 13th Annual Bull Sale, Tuesday, February 26th at Baylog Auction, Lethbridge, Alberta. On offer, approximately 50 top-quality bulls. You can see them at ulrichherfords.com. These bulls are the sons of industry leaders. For more information, call Peter, 403-625-1036. That number again, 403-625-1036. Ulrich Hereford, specializing in light birth weights with great performance, plus remarkable cows. That's February 26th at Baylog Auction, Lethbridge, Alberta. Well, let's take you back to that conversation with Ken Overcast now.
When I was about 12 years old, after milking, there was one old Angus crossbred cow. Called her a very politically incorrect name, but I used to climb on her while she still had her head in the stanchion, and then my uncle they thought this was the biggest joke, and they'd let her go, and I'd just hang on for all I was worth, and I'd make it until she got out the door, and I'd almost always fall off. But the time I learned how to ride her, she learned to quit running. So,
yeah, that's the way it works.
Where can you have more fun than on a farm or a ranch?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We're kind of getting away from some of that stuff, I think, but it's good time.
Well, there's probably a lot of good bull riders that maybe got their start doing that, though. You know.
Yeah, there is. You know, a cow buck's different than a bull.
Yeah.
You know, a cow will throw you over the head, you know, where a bull tends to throw you back. So you got to ride them a little different, but still, it really helps.
Yeah. I don't do it anymore, but we did have some big fall calves to brand. Calves had been missed in spring branding, and they were probably 400, 450 pounds by now. And two of my neighbors and I had nobody else around. We had to get them branded before they were sold, and I was the youngest of that crew. They're both older than I am, and I was the second biggest, and it was really interesting. And my neighbor that weighs about 240 pounds was sitting right on one's neck while I was trying to brand her, and the calf decided he was getting up. That was all there was to it, and he just tossed him off of there like he wasn't anything. I thought that was going to be an awful wreck, but my little mare held her ground. Wondered what us three old gray-haired coots were doing that day, huffing and puffing with these cows.
Yeah, well, you know, there's some advantage to that old gray-haired stuff, because a lot of times them young guys, you know, if there's any of them around, they'll feel sorry for you, and they'll let you do the roping and all that kind of stuff. We had some of those calves we just branded here just before we came down here just about a month ago. You know, some that got away last spring and a few late ones, and they were, you know, 400 or 500 pounds, some of them, but luckily I had this big, strong Norwegian son-in-law that I just did the roping and he did all the sweating part.
Well, Ken, it's sure good to see you and Dawn again, and I sure enjoy the material you're putting up.
All righty, thanks a lot.
Now, if you'd like to know more about Ken Overcast and order his music and his books, just go to KenOvercast.com. Real good website Ken has. Coming up, a classic song of the West you might not have heard for a long time, and a fine piece of cowboy poetry when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. It's time for our classic song of the West, but first of all, regarding last week's classic song, a song called Cattle Drive, sung by Jill Jones, I'm a little bit red-faced, and here's why. I just assumed it was a classic old Western song, and it sure will be someday, but it was written not that long ago by my old pal from Colorado, Daryl Arnold. And I should have known that. Hey, Daryl, I always knew it was a great song, and it will be a classic someday. Now about this week's classic. The morning show on Minnesota Public Radio plays this song every morning at 7:04 a.m. It was recorded by the Sons of the Pioneers on the Essential Collection, and it was written by founding Sons of the Pioneers members Tim Spencer and his brother Glenn. Now, it may have been featured in a Roy Rogers movie, but I just can't find out which one. This version comes from the debut album of the Sons of the San Joaquin, When the Prairie Sun Climbs Out of the Hay.
When the prairie sun climbs out of the hay and spreads a blanket of light to hurt the stars from the night, we'll hit the old corral with a cowboy yell. When the prairie sun climbs out of the hay, you can hear them buckskins stomping around. The boss is happy to know the gang is raring to go. We'll hear the hoofbeats pound on the frosty ground when the prairie sun climbs out of the hay. It's early morning on the rolling range. The roundup has begun, and we'll be rocking on that rolling range when we see that rising sun. When the prairie sun climbs out of the hay and spreads a blanket of light to herd the stars from the night, we'll hit the old corral with a cowboy yell. When the prairie sun climbs out of the hay, we'll saddle 'em up by the light of the moon and wait for the break of day. They seem to know that pretty soon we'll be rambling on our way. You can tie your bedding up in a knot. We'll see a lot of the plains before we need 'em again. Just let that bacon fry. We'll be riding high when the prairie sun climbs out of the hay.
This week's Cowboy Poetry Spotlight features a real nice one from Dwayne Nelson, and it's called Horses and Men.
He sat in a rocker by the pot-bellied stove at the barn dance on Saturday nights. He'd chew on his pipe with his old eyes half closed as if to keep out the lights. He wore ragged felt slippers on old crippled feet, bibs and a dirty slouch hat. His face was all leather, his wrinkles a map, his body devoid of all fat. The scraggly white whiskers and rheumy old eyes, tobacco stains under his chin. Faded plaid jacket and crooked old hands told stories of where he had been. The men called him Mister, said he'd been down the trail with the Longhorns decades ago. He'd gone from jingling horses to riding top hand. Made a few trips as cook, even so. What the wives thought was different. There's no time for him. He's a bum and a drifter, that's all. Just a broke-down old cowboy a-wasting away, telling lies and tales that were tall. Now, to us kids, he's a legend from out of the past. Takes us back to our cowboying roots. A knight of the plains and horseman supreme, 10 feet tall in his spurs and high boots. With riata and six-gun on a big old black stallion sitting there on his high-cantled saddle, a sombreroed hero a-riding the trails, following the wild longhorn cattle. Then the years slipped by slowly, the stories grew quiet as the old man sat tired and small, and the legend grew dimmer, like he'd slipped out of sight, like the summer turns down into fall. Then one night some strangers stopped by and asked him to tell of the old days long gone, how he'd been up the trail with wild Texas cattle back when he's young and he's strong. One lady told him it must have been fun for you boys way out on the plains, riding your ponies, chasing the cattle in the sun and the wind and the rains. The old man just listened, said not a word with his teeth clenched down on his pipe. And his mind drifted backwards to days in the saddle, and the memories flowed in clear and ripe. And he can still see the trail herd stretching out north, long horns gleaming bright in the sun. Hear the bellows of cattle, the squalls of the cowboys, a horseback till day's work is done. And days of no water, the dust billows skyward, tired cattle grown crazy with thirst, the hollow-eyed cowboys, lips chapped and bleeding, praying that they'd seen the worst. Or rain never-ending, mud stretching onwards, ride night guard through wind, snow, and hail. Your horses slog onward, the scene never changes, you stare at a muddy cow's tail. Your saddle's your pillow, you're cold in your bedroll, spread out on the hard rocky ground. Before sunup you're rising, a long day before you. There's never enough rest to be found. His eyes flutter open, he looks at the lady who'd asked about ponies and boys. Still seeing the old days, heading north with the cows with all their problems and joys. Through tobacco-stained mustache and old gray-flecked eyebrows comes a message like a bell that's been rung. As he sits up much straighter, the years fallen from him, and he speaks with a voice that's now young. There wasn't no boys nor ponies, says he, that went up the trail with me then. No, there wasn't no boys and ponies, ma'am, 'cause they all was horses and men.
Thank you so much for making the ride this week, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And as always, thanks to our support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. And Mark can find the tractor parts you might be looking for. Just go to his page, bctractorparts.com. And I hope you can check out the video version of this program on our YouTube channel. It's SOTW55, and you can probably figure out what SOTW stands for. And if you can become a subscriber, that would really help us. It's also available on our radio show Facebook page with video. The complete list of great radio stations that carry us along the broadcast schedule is at our website, hugh-mclennan.com. Oh yeah, and you can subscribe to Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine at cowboycountrymagazine.com as well. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.